Beyond the
So
Screen.
two shows that I wanted to talk about that came out about the end of last year, and they're very similar in themes, is Welcome to Derry and Stranger Things Season 5. Part of the reason why I really wanted to pick these two shows mainly is because there's similarities, first and foremost. They both stories are set in small Midwestern towns. You have Hawkins for Stranger Things, and then you have Derry from the It movies. They both centered around children, and they're also centered around the fact that they're fighting off some interdimensional creature or monster, as in Pennywise from the It films and Vecna from Stranger Things. The reason why they feel similar mainly is because the Duffer Brothers were very big Stephen King fans, and so obviously they borrowed a lot from Stephen King's, particularly It. And Welcome to Derry is basically the prequel to Andy Muschietti's It, Welcome to It, and It Chapter 2. So obviously both shows are extremely similar in tone and theme. Basically, though, I wanted to talk about it because one show worked where I thought the other show didn't work. And the one I would say that worked was Welcome to Derry. I thought first and foremost, it helped that they cast children in this version. Even if the actors are probably 2 or 3 years older than the characters they're supposed to play, they still felt like children. Where season 5 of Stranger Things, not the whole season, but the finale, obviously, though they were kids like 5 years ago, now they were young adults, and yet we were asked to believe that they're still going to high school. So I got to give a point to Welcome to Derry. I just believed in the cast. The other thing why what also worked was the fact that Welcome to Derry had stakes. As a matter of fact, and this is spoilers for anybody who has not seen either one of these shows, the very first episode, they killed off basically the main cast, with an exception of a couple of people. Everybody else got killed that were kids. So they were willing to kill off kids. Even when they got replaced by other our new characters, the characters that was going to represent the rest of the show, even then they were able to kill off still some more kids. So they definitely got the edge there, where something like Stranger Things, they just wouldn't kill off the kids. Well, they couldn't. Matter of fact, they wouldn't even kill off the cast, and because they couldn't kill off the cast, there was no stakes. As a matter of fact, if you ever notice about Stranger Things, every season the cast grows and grows and grows. So by the time it got to season 5, they probably had like 20 people in that cast. So that became a problem, and everybody kept talking. Who are they going to kill off? Who are they going to kill off? They weren't going to kill off anybody. Oh, with the exception of Eleven's sister. I guess her name. I don't know her name. Was she 8 or something like that? The person of color that they ended up killing off. So obviously, got to give another point to Derry, because without stakes, there's no tension in your story. And there was so much tension going into Welcome to Derry, and so much emotion. And one of the biggest episodes was that they killed off one of my favorite characters, which was Richie, which was heartbreaking to see, and it worked because they gave you time to get to know who this character was and how he interacted with everybody else in the group. Also, what I really liked about what Derry ended up doing was that they were incorporating the Stephen King's universe. They were doing characters based off of the books, because it's a prequel and went back. So you start to see some of the characters in the movie, some of their parents was featured into this film. And I also like how they were able to incorporate some of the other characters from Stephen King's novels, like The Shining in particular. The character of Dick Halloran was key to the story. And I thought the way they used that character was brilliant. It really kind of gave Dick an origin story, which of how his shining worked. And having him go toe to toe with Pennywise was so good. I thought that was just excellently done. And they were, and there was nothing quite like that with Stranger Things. And there's that term, show, don't tell. And I felt like Welcome to Derry always showed us what was going on with those characters and the relationship, that every episode was important. And you couldn't help but watch the next episode after next episode. Where Stranger Things, all they did was tell. All they did was standing around and talk and talk. And it never resolved any of the issues that they had in seasons past. It just got to a point where I would always is Steve and Justin still arguing, and what's going on there and stuff. It just felt repetitious. And then there's that moment where Will finally comes out, but instead of coming out to his mom and maybe to his closest friends, because the cast is so big, they kind of did this 20-minute episode. 20 minutes in the second of last episode to talk about that. And I felt like he came out in the first 4 episodes and then have his power in the second batch of 4 episodes. I just felt like that would have been much stronger to do. But there was a lot of talking, a lot of standing around, a lot of talking. And really the key, the final one, the one that really struck me is I just felt Pennywise, played by Bill Skarsgård, again, was so much more interesting than Vecna. I just felt like they gave him more to do. I love Pennywise's backstory, both as the entity and also as the character that Pennywise stole the clown persona from. I just thought that was great. And the fact that it went back in time, back in I think it was 1960s, 1963, I thought was brilliant. And I love the title sequence, the little tune that they play at the beginning that kind of shows the history of Pennywise going backwards. And the fact that in the finale, you realize that Pennywise, that Welcome to Derry isn't just a prequel, but it's also a sequel. And in a lot of ways incorporated time travel. It was just such a layered story. And let's talk about the finale. You got both finales with Welcome to Derry's finale and Stranger Things finale. And again, I got to give it to Welcome to Derry. I felt that the way Pennywise, once they established that he's bound by Derry, people kept asking, why doesn't he ever leave Derry? There's a reason for it. Derry's basically like his prison. So that's the reason, he wakes up every 27 years or 26 years to feed. He just can't leave. This episode shows that he can, or they got to stop him from leaving Derry. It was just really fascinating how he was able to use his power. Pennywise in this version is so much more graphic and so much more funnier than both It and It Chapter 2 combined. Where Vecna, for the most part, was just kind of sitting around a bunch of kids, and introduces Mike's sister, Holly. She has a lot of screen time in it, and Vecna just wasn't doing anything. It was just, I felt Vecna was more sinister in season 4 than he ever was in season 5. And then he was dispatched so quickly in the finale to the point where it was I think the finale was 2 hours long, and he was already dead by the first hour. And the Mind Flayer, easily dispatched as well. The Demogorgons, where were they? They weren't there. And then the last hour was just a whole bunch of talking again. And, it was kind of like doing the Lords of the Ring, where there's about 7 goodbyes and stuff like that. I did like the very finale where the gang played Dungeons and Dragons for one last time. And talked about possibly Elle being alive, which the idea was Elle sacrificed herself, but the truth of the matter is, that group killed a lot of soldiers. I'm not even sure why they were allowed to go home. You know what I'm saying? So none of it made sense. Where I felt like the finale in Welcome to Derry was just so much tighter. So all in all, I just felt Welcome to Derry was so much it was a better story, better characters arc, much more intense, much more scary. Where I just didn't feel that way with season 5. I did feel season 5, and I'm a big Things fan, but I did feel like season 5 was the weakest out of the entire season. I did think season 4 was by far stronger, and they probably should have ended there. So if I got to pick a winner, it would be Pennywise. So he's definitely and I hope they do a Welcome to Derry season 2. I'm looking forward to it. But that's pretty much it for those 2 shows. I'll be back to talk about what else I've seen. All right. Peace out.